episode of No Pain, No Wane.
Yes, sir.
Today we were treated to the 1932 classic of Big Stampede, the second film in the John Wayne and Duke hexology.
Yep.
It would be 6 movies.
Yes, sir.
But, yeah, this was an interesting watch.
Our last film, Ride 'em Cowboy, it was remarkably shorter than the very first film we watched,
The Big Trail.
The Big Trail. So it was much more, fast paced. But this movie's even more fast paced.
It's even faster, baby.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, this movie it was a hard thing to follow, Ride 'em Cowboy, which I think is... I genuinely think Ride 'em Cowboy... Again, I can't praise that movie enough.
Right.
Watch that movie. But yeah. Let's start this off with, Micah, lay down some of the general facts of A Big Stampede before we get into this.
So this movie is a remake, because I guess they really like to do remakes back in the day.
God, they love them.
They love it. So this movie is a remake of The Land Beyond the Law, which is a dope-ass fucking name.
That's a really good title.
Yeah.
I can see why they used that.
Yeah. So that was the original film, made in 1927. So then they remade it
into A Big Stampede. This one.
A Big Stampede, yes.
In 1932.
And then they remade it again in 1937 and used the original title.
I just know this movie came out exactly. It was 1927, 5 years. They made the movie again.
Yep.
And then 5 years later, they made the movie a third time.
That's true. Yeah.
And so it goes, again, I just want to clarify for myself here. The Land Beyond the Law in 27. Then A Big Stampede, the John Wayne movie in 32.
Yep.
And then again, The Land Beyond the Law in 37.
Yeah. They really had the need to remake it a second time.
That's wonderful. I'm glad we've got that cleared up. First off, who is the director of this film? I can't remember his name.
Was it Tenny something?
Tenny something.
Which is very strange.
I can't remember the director's name, and I don't feel like really giving him that much credit.
Yeah. Fun little fact about him, though. I guess he started out his career as a stuntman and eventually became a film director. So
Really?
Yeah, that's interesting.
We'll remember his name towards the end of the podcast, I'm sure. But yeah. And so... You got a fun fact about John Wayne, because this movie has some more stunts in it than the last one.
So many. Just crazy stunts. So in the last film, they had a double for stunt John Wayne.
The gentleman who rode the horse.
Yeah. And in this film, John Wayne did all of the stunts. And
all of them?
All of them. That's according to IMDb. And there's some crazy stunts in this film, which we'll get
There
into
are
later.
some outrageous stunts. Please stay tuned. But that's enough preamble, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, no, there's one more piece of preamble. Last week, after we recorded the podcast, we decided to treat ourselves and watch the trailer for this movie.
Oh, my heavens.
And now... If you're not gonna watch the movie, that's fine. Watch the trailer for A Big Stampede. It's the best trailer I've ever seen. It starts off with, in giant bold text, the word whoopee, and then look at him ride as John Wayne's just racing across the screen on Duke. And then it just shows, it's so frantic and so much is happening. You see a wagon explode. Watch that. It's like an award-winning student film almost. And how much is packed into that trailer.
I think if you watch the trailer, you've pretty much watched the film.
Yeah, and it feels like the same pace.
Yeah.
The trailer is as frantic as the movie itself. So if you want a taste of the heart attack inducing pace of this movie. Watch that trailer. But getting into the movie itself.
Yeah.
We open on the desert. It's New Mexico, somewhere before 1912, which is when it becomes a state. So this is just before New Mexico is quote-unquote tamed and becomes a state. We have some banditos talking to a bunch of pilgrims who are saying they want to go to New Mexico. And the banditos say, you can't go to New Mexico. New Mexico's hell. It's a lawless land where there's rustlers of cattle. And the only law is this. And he holds up his revolver. So real pulpy, Western stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get to see some banditos rustling some cattle. And the pilgrims say, you know what? You make a damn good point. And they leave. And you don't see those guys again. Those pilgrims leave. Then, hard cut, there's a huge office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dark wood, covered in dead animals.
Yeah.
The executive...
The governor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
The executive office of New Mexico. We are presuming he's some sort of governor.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever you have before you become a state.
Yeah.
He's in charge of the territory of New Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know the logistics of it.
Right.
Leave that for an exercise for the viewer to research that. Basically, he's sitting there, and it's the traditional, John Wayne, here, titled John Steele. Not John Drury, as we were hoping.
No.
He was not the returning character we wanted. But it's John Steele, John Wayne, comes in, and he is basically asked to become the sheriff of, I think, literally all of New Mexico.
Yeah.
They don't single out a town.
No.
He says, I want you to go bring law to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Which is a huge state. I don't know if anyone's seen a map recently. It's a huge state. It's like half the size of fucking Texas.
Yeah.
But he's in charge of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we cut again. We're back to New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We are introduced to our villains. Table of villains, right?
Yep.
They're sitting around talking about how easy it is to steal cattle and how easy it is to make a whole bunch of money, where we get to see our first bit of racism in a John Wayne B movie.
This is crazy.
A white man comes in blatantly in brown face makeup, dressed up as a Native American, doesn't say a word, like throws down a tray of food and leaves, and you never see him again. You don't see any other Native Americans in the entire movie, I don't think.
No, absolutely.
They really did not need to put him in there, but they just felt like, what's a Western without a little bit of racism? And by God, Micah, doesn't this movie commit to that racism?
It does.
Holy shit. But yeah, while the big villain, Mr. Crew, is sitting here talking to his posse, sort of. He's pretending to sort of be a sheriff, yes, Mr. Crew?
Yeah.
He's pretending to be a sheriff of this town in New Mexico. When his companion, Arizona, arrives, having just freshly rustled up some cattle.
Yeah.
Where we get a great bit of 1930s phrasing where Mr. Crew slaps Arizona on the back, talking about how good a job he did taking all these cattle, and he says, "You big galoot, Arizona." That's G-A-L-U-T. I have no idea what galoot means, but I am absolutely adding that to my vocabulary, and I'm going to start calling everyone I know a galoot.
Absolutely.
Then we cut again. This is not even 5 minutes into the movie, and we have traveled in and out of New Mexico 3 different times. Just a flavor of how frantic the pace of this movie is. We get introduced to the new group of pilgrims who are going to venture into New Mexico. You have the love interest Ginger Malloy, her younger brother Pat Malloy, and their uncle Brett.
Yep.
and his wife. His wife is not a character,
No.
but she's there.
I guess.
Pat Malloy, the little boy. The little boy, Pat Malloy.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. He has a slingshot, and he's a bit of a twerp. So he shoots his sister in the face with a slingshot. And now, this must be a really weak slingshot, because you can use a regular slingshot to kill rabbits.
Right.
And it seemed like he just shot her with a rock from 5 feet away. That should have put a hole in her skull. Because I'm not sure if you know this, a sling, not even a slingshot, just a regular sling, has the same stopping power as a .45 caliber revolver.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So she should be dead, and Pat Malloy should go to prison. But he doesn't. There's no justice in the world. There's no justice. It's a lawless land. Then we cut again. The movie's not done yet. We cut to the saloon in the small New Mexico town where Crew is talking to the bartender saying, apparently some new deputy is supposed to show up.
Right.
And he picks up his shot glass to take a drink, and what do you know, but there's a sheriff's star drawn on the desk, and he goes, that's the deputy's mark. Huh. And he thinks to himself, and he takes the shot, and he starts scanning around behind him, and he's asking if there's any new strangers in.
Yeah.
And he's scoping out, there's a couple of weirdos just in the background, and then John Steele, like crumpled up wearing a stupid hat, pretending to be a drunk.
Yeah.
And he's like pouring his whiskey on the ground, pretending to drink it. Which is wonderful. And I don't know why he does this, but John Steele, when he sees Crew turn around back towards the bartender, he shuffles up, pushes Mr. Crew, distracting him, and puts a star on the back of the bartender without anyone seeing, like a magician, without anyone seeing, so that he can then walk away and say, oh, sorry, partner, and then have Mr. Crew look at the bartender's back and be like, well, how'd that star get there? Just to, I don't know, to mess with him. I guess he's being playful.
I suppose. Leaving his mark.
He's leaving his mark. Which I cannot stress enough has nothing to do with anything in the movie.
No.
But he keeps doing it, but there's zero payoff to the mark.
Yeah.
Then, my favorite character, upsettingly, my favorite character, comes in. And his name is Sonora Joe.
Absolutely.
And he swings open the saloon doors. He's wearing a poncho, like a vaqueros jacket, a huge sombrero, and he opens up with, Buenos dias, amigos! Is this a saloon or is someone she died?
That's a word for word quote, by the way.
Just to reiterate, is this a saloon or is someone she died? It's incomprehensible, and if you haven't picked up, this is not a very accurate portrayal of a Mexican.
Absolutely not.
It's in fact a Spanish man.
Yeah, he was born in Barcelona, Spain.
A man born in Barcelona, Spain, wearing brown face, and a fake mustache, pretending to be Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's
beautiful.
Outrageous. Now, if you didn't think that was bad enough, after saying that line, he goes, how about a little music, eh? And then they all break out, all of him and his other vaqueros, a bunch of other white guys pretending to be Mexicans, start singing, I kid you not, La Cucaracha. They go, La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha. And then, to continue, that's not even the end. They walk up to the bar and say, I need a drink. A barrel of drinks. We're very thirsty. That's his accent, not mine. That's not my accent. And Micah, tell us
Oh
about,
my God.
again, our favorite background character.
You mentioned that Sonora Joe's hat was massive.
Yes.
There's a man, one of his compadres. His hat was so goddamn tall.
It made,
was
it made
ridiculous.
Sonora Joe's hat look small
I
in
know, right?
comparison.
It was absurd.
It's like almost 2 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's
It's
absurd.
insanity.
And he's always in the background. Whenever
Yeah.
you see Sonora Joe,
He's like right next to him.
he's
Like he's his right hand man. He
next to
doesn't
him.
say a single
He
word.
doesn't have it. He's not named.
No.
But he's in every scene that Sonora Joe is
Yeah.
wearing the hat. He never takes it off.
And he's so you can just tell it's like he's just sticks out like a sore thumb. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
dude. You can watch him. Every time he's on screen, he just
Right.
stole it. He stole the scene and it didn't say a single word. He just had that natural hat-based charisma.
It's the sheer magnitude of the hat.
It's incredible. And if that wasn't good enough,
Mhm.
the Vaqueros and Mr. Crew leave the bar, and then Mr. Crew, pretending to be a sheriff and knowing the deputy is somewhere, tries to
Right.
play up his act and is talking about how they need to bring law back to New Mexico.
Mhm.
And after every sentence, Sombrero Guy strums his guitar, doing a literal guitar sting, like and like everyone stops to look at him. They're like, "What are you doing?" He's wonderful. Yeah, just like literal guitar stings. Now, following this, I'm sorry if this must be so frantic.
Absolutely. It's a frantic
But
movie.
but this is the pace. This is the pace of the movie. Pat Malloy and his family have shown up to the town,
Mhm.
and this little boy walks out and he sees Arizona, a guy he's never seen before and knows nothing about,
Right. Yeah.
resting his feet on a barrel. We know he's a dangerous criminal. Pat Malloy just thinks it's some guy. The little boy takes a lasso, throws it perfectly around Arizona's feet, and drags him out of his chair. Like pranking him, I guess.
Yeah.
And
It's just
Arizona's reaction, Mike, could tell the folks
Just-
at home the very rational response Arizona has being pranked by an 8-year-old.
he just straight up scolds him. Like he like kind of grabs him.
He starts strangling him.
Yeah, he does.
He grabs him both hands around the neck.
Yeah, that's right.
Tries to wring the life out of this child.
Yeah. And
Well,
then our
where-
hero
Our hero,
hero.
John Steele,
comes in.
punches him right in the fucking face. Just full strength. Bang, right in the face. And that's how he's introduced to Ginger, the love interest.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, don't worry. I'm sure Pat Malloy could have handled him." And Pat Malloy's like, "Yeah, I could have taken him. Oh, you shouldn't have stopped me. Why, I oughta..." Kind of like, the chicken hawk from Looney Tunes. Very similar character.
Absolutely.
But he was gonna get murdered. Like, actually violently murdered by a cattle rustler.
Yeah.
So that happens. And for some reason, as John Steele's walking away, he left a star in the dirt that Mr. Crew picks up and goes, Another magic star. I believe that's the last star that ever comes up.
Yeah.
Because I think John Steele just reveals himself to be
The deputy sheriff.
the deputy sheriff at that point by
Yeah.
punching this guy.
Right.
It's really hard to tell. Again, this is such a fast movie. So Pat Malloy, again, all the characters, after punching Arizona. All the characters go to a party. Pat Malloy breaks his sling, and he's like, I need some elastic. So he goes to his sister, who is sewing her underwear.
Yes.
While Malloy walks up to her, John Steele walks up to her, and she's like embarrassed because she's sewing up her underwear, or her frocks, or knickers. I don't know what they'd be called. Those big loose white pants you see,
Yeah.
like women from the 1800s wearing under their big skirts.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call them frocks.
That's probably what they're called.
We'll
It's
lock
not a
that
bad
in.
guess.
We'll lock that in. And now, I think I understand what happens here, but it's hard to tell. So, Pat Malloy asks his sister for elastic, and she says, I don't have any elastic. And Pat says, yes, you do. I saw it in your sewing kit. And she gets embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Pat steals the underwear she's holding behind her back, or the frocks,
Puts it on.
and puts it on, starts dancing around. And John Wayne laughs, and the scene ends.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I don't know if you have an interpretation, but the only answer I can have for why that is supposed to be funny is that the sister was going to use the elastic in her frocks because she's gaining weight.
Yeah.
And it's like a fat joke, but she's super skinny.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But I don't know if that's like a 30s joke, that would be embarrassing.
I suppose.
I can't understand why having elastic in a sewing kit would be embarrassing unless that's
Right.
what they were going for.
It has to be.
Right?
Yeah.
If you know, please, I'm fucking begging you, leave a comment. I'm baffled by this scene. You don't worry, you're not missing any context, right?
No.
We included everything there.
Yeah.
So that happens, and another fan favorite returns. John Wayne begins playing the mouth organ, the harmonica again.
Yeah.
Where we started wondering, does John Wayne actually know how to play the mouth organ?
If they emphasize it so much, surely he has to, right?
Right? It would be so weird if back to back he has two characters who can play the harmonica, but he cannot.
Right. Yeah, that's gotta be a thing.
But in the movie, he's not. He's
Yeah.
just like flailing his hands.
That's true. That's true.
Like that's not how you play a harmonica. But maybe he can, and he's just acting.
Yeah.
Who knows? During this mouth organ party, where there's playing music and dancing around, Arizona, the wrestler, right?
Yep.
Sneaks up in the dark behind a wagon, and he knocks something over.
I'm not sure exactly what happened. He makes some sort of noise or something.
Somehow a noise emanates from him,
Yeah.
alerting Brett, the uncle of Ginger,
Mm-hmm.
to investigate with his rifle.
Yeah.
Where once he rounds the corner and sees Arizona, he's promptly shot and killed
Yeah.
immediately. He just shot dead in his tracks. It was brutal. He's just killed. And then everyone, obviously, naturally,
Mm-hmm.
gets frantic and gets getting ready to defend themselves.
Right.
And so there's a shootout between Arizona and his bandits who are with him,
Yeah.
and John Steele and the rest of the pilgrims. Michael, what's going on with the other character? What third party is happening here? Sonora Joe.
Oh, that's right.
What's Sonora Joe doing?
He's just on looking, right?
Mm-hmm. He's on looking, and what does he say? And then what does he do?
This great quote. While the whole gunfight's going on, this great quote, he says, "When the kitty works, the mouse she steals the cattle." Which makes no sense whatsoever. It's just absolute nonsense.
It's genuinely incomprehensible. We've been crunching the numbers on this, right? We've been chewing
Right.
at the bit.
That's right.
There's no answer for what that means. And he's full of these. He continuously says, outlandish, nonsensical shit for the whole movie. Not even in Spanish.
Yeah.
He's just saying things wrong in English, even though the guy clearly speaks fluent English.
Yeah.
It's awful. Now, finally, Duke appears.
Out of nowhere.
Out of-
this is halfway through the movie, and he just appears.
You haven't seen Duke on screen a single time yet.
Yeah.
And Duke appears, and John just goes, Duke, herd cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does.
He just does.
Because Sonora Joe is trying to steal the cattle.
Yeah.
The horse just stops them. The horse, Duke, just starts rounding up the cattle. And then John, alone, pulls a gun on Sonora Joe and successfully gets all of, Joe and the 4 other guys with him to all raise their hands. None of them go for their guns. And then he literally says, Sonora Joe, vamos.
Yeah.
I think he says vamos even.
He might.
He's vamos.
Vamos.
He pronounces it horribly. And so Sonora Joe leaves, and immediately
Next scene.
you see him 30 feet away with the rest of his crew, and he says, that deputy, I want to skin him alive. Hard cut. It's the next day. John Wayne's sitting by a fire,
Playing the harmonica.
playing that harmonica. Sonora Joe shows up. It's like, oh, perfect. I just said I want to kill this fucking guy. And he rounds the corner, and then John's just like, oh, hey, Sonora Joe. Tell you what, I want to deputize you.
And then Duke appears.
And then Duke the horse, he bumps into the
He bumps
vaqueros.
Bumps into one guy. It's like a domino. It's a domino effect.
He bumps the guy on the end, and then they'll fall together.
Yeah.
And then John pulls up his gun, and they all raise their hands again,
Yeah.
like he's gonna arrest them.
Right.
But then he just says, "I expect you, new Deputy Sonora Joe, to help me arrest Arizona."
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is the scene where he reveals he's the sheriff. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they know he's the sheriff already.
Well, didn't they think he was just a rustler trying to steal their cattle? Right?
No, they knew because they call him a rustler,
That's what, yeah.
but they're never surprised that he's a deputy.
Okay, gotcha.
That it's confusing.
It is very confusing.
Because he pretends to not be the sheriff, and at no point does he really reveal himself to be the sheriff.
Right.
Because Arizona knows that he is going to come and arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow. And he knows that he is the deputy.
Right.
It's a weird movie. It's like we must have blinked and missed a scene.
Right.
Where it's explained. So Sonora Joe has been deputized?
Yes. It's deputized.
And
Deputy sheriff.
now he's a good guy.
Yep.
Sonora Joe is now a good
Complete
guy.
180.
Yeah, he started out as clearly a villain because he's talking about rustling cattle, and then he wants to rustle cattle with Arizona. Now he's just fully on John's side.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Yeah. So then we cut again to the saloon where Arizona's waiting.
Yep.
And this is an insane turn of events, looking back on it especially.
Yeah.
Some of his posse bring in a straw version of the deputy because they all know that for some reason at exactly 9 o'clock,
Mhm.
John's coming for him.
That's right.
At no point did John say, I'm going to arrest you at 9 at the saloon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I was wondering what that scene was all about.
Yeah. There's some arbitrary time where he's going to show up. Even
Yeah.
though the last time they saw each other, they were shooting at one another.
Yep. Very strange.
So they're like messing with him with a straw version of him. which they put on a chair and push over. And so there's just this dummy straw sheriff lying down next to a chair in the saloon. It's completely in the open.
Right.
Like, there's the bar 5 feet away, the tipped over chair with the dummy on it.
Yeah.
It's very visible. While these guys are like sweating, Sonora Joe comes in with his vaqueros, and they're hanging out with Arizona. Arizona doesn't know he's been deputized.
Yeah.
So he's like an inside man.
Mm-hmm.
As John jumps on top of Duke the horse, much like the last movie.
Yep.
I think this is one of his tricks.
It definitely is.
And then jumps from the horse onto the second floor of the saloon. Now, this is the weirdest part of this scene and this movie. John sneaks down the stairs. Now, he's seeing everyone at the bar
Right.
with their backs turned.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than do anything, we see him duck around a corner. Fair enough. He wants to get the surprise. Sonora Joe suggests that Arizona do something about the quote-unquote sheriff,
Yeah.
like the dummy one on the ground. And so he's like, I'll show you what I'd do to that deputy sheriff. And he walks over. Now, I, a rational human being, am currently expecting John to jump around the corner he hid behind and pull a gun on him. Like, surprise, gotcha. But no. Michael, what happens instead?
He replaces the straw sheriff. Like, he's laying on the ground by the chair, has his gun pointing,
and then arrests him.
And then arrests him.
Which, what advantage? He's only disadvantaged because now he's on the ground.
It's just showmanship, brother.
How did he move the dummy without anyone seeing?
I don't know.
It's an insane scene that adds nothing to the movie. So Arizona's arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Crew and his crew come in. That's gonna get confusing. Thanks for naming him that. Rushes in. There's a standoff. They don't want him to arrest Arizona. He helps rustle cattle for them. And John has to take him because he's the law in this land. And so he just says to Sonora Joe, shoot out the lights, which he does. Shoots the big oil lamps.
Yeah.
Pitch black. Chaos ensues, right?
It's crazy.
Bro, everyone starts shooting.
So many gunshots.
In the chaos, John, with captured Arizona, and Sonora Joe and his gang all escape and run to the jail.
Yeah.
Then there's a huge gunfight that happens between the saloon and the jail, like through the windows, until Mr. Crew decides to leave. Because he realizes they have to take Arizona to Fort Cummings for trial.
That's right.
And so they'll free Arizona once he leaves. Fair enough. John comes up with a plan. Explain what John does with the wagon.
He just takes it and starts running, man.
He gets in the wagon pretending like Arizona's in the wagon.
Yeah.
John's whipping the horses.
Mm-hmm.
And he put a prisoner in the back of the wagon.
Yeah. It wasn't Arizona.
Wasn't Arizona, it was just some guy. But on the wagon, he's racing. All of Crew's men are chasing him, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wagon tips over and explodes into 1,000 pieces. And the real John Wayne, doing his stunts,
he did
right?
That stunt, yeah,
is thrown from the wagon, holding onto the reins.
Yeah, and he's being dragged by the horse.
He's dragged for like 100 feet by galloping horses. And there's nothing under him. He's just on the dirt.
Yeah.
Being dragged across like rocks.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then he jumps onto the like torn up wagon and he uses it as like a chariot for a little while before getting onto the horse and riding away.
Yeah.
And then Crew's men find out, oh no, we've been duped. This isn't the right guy. And it turns out, while John was doing his brilliant distraction, Sonora Joe just took the actual Arizona to prison. Because he is just a good guy, I guess, now.
Yeah.
He's just a good guy.
Good old Sonora Joe.
Good old Sonora Joe. He's always been a good guy. And that's a wonderful scene. Now we have another party. John is playing the mouth organ again, just to remind people that he can. And then he stops, and because he sees Ginger, the love interest.
Right.
Just so you all know, we haven't skipped over her doing anything.
No, she has no role, basically.
She's nothing.
Yeah.
She's just not even a character. She's a name.
Yeah.
She is a woman for John to kiss.
Yes.
That's it. She has done nothing in the movie and does nothing throughout the entirety of the runtime. John walks over to her and he sits down and they're talking, and out of nowhere she asks, "Can you read palms?" And what does he say, Micah?
He says he's only the best fortune teller in the Southwest.
The best fortune teller in the Southwest. He's not only able to read palms,
Right.
but there's no one better than him in the 4-state region.
Yeah. Incredible.
And what's his palm reading?
He say something like, you're gonna marry some deputy sheriff, young, handsome deputy sheriff.
That's exactly what he says. You're gonna marry. And then she just says, "I wonder who that is." Not even jokingly. Like, she seemed actually confused. Because his character's a moron. Because this is a 30s impression of what a woman is.
Exactly.
And therefore it's just an empty vessel waiting for a man to take charge. It's horrible.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely abysmal.
Oh my gosh.
While this is happening, John's wooing Ginger, basically. Pat sits down with him. He sticks himself in between, like as a gag. Oh,
yeah.
He's getting in the middle of this romance scene, and he's like, "Hey, John, Sonora Joe told me that cattle in Mexico have horns that are 19 feet long. Is that true?" And then he says, "I hear Mexico's so big it takes 4 years to ride around it." And then Sonora Joe just runs over, grabs him, and drags him away before locking him under one of his legs and saying, "Don't you go ruin their moment."
Right.
While Pat is screaming, "No, don't take me."
He's mortified.
And Pat's a child. I was like, this feels real. He feels actually scared. It was such a weird scene.
It was strange.
And just in case there weren't enough plots going on in this movie, a military man shows up and says, "We, the U.S. Army, want to buy cattle from you, these pilgrims, if you can deliver them to Fort Cummings. We'll buy them." Perfect. Now the title of the movie can actually happen.
Right?
There's a huge herd of cattle.
Like hundreds.
Like, easily.
Equivalent to a big trail.
Yeah.
Like, it was nuts.
It's a colossal amount of cows are getting herded away. And we see Crew. He wants to steal them, but he decides, these cows are moving too quick.
Mm-hmm.
We can't possibly steal these cows. We'll just stampede them.
Right.
No idea what benefit that would give him.
No.
If I were him, I'd wait till they sell the cows and then steal the money.
Right.
But anyway, now's not the time. That's for after we finish describing the movie. I got a little ahead of myself. They stampede the cows. John is trying to steer the cows.
Right.
And
then Ginger gets caught up in the middle, I guess.
yeah, Ginger
Somehow.
falls off of her horse.
Yeah, right.
Because for some reason she was on a horse and not in one of the wagons.
Right.
She falls off her horse.
Yeah.
We're not missing details, by the way. This is how fast this happens.
It's so fast.
There's no explanation for anything. She falls off her horse, and then John immediately saves her. And then
Right.
Crew falls off of his horse, or somehow is removed from his horse
Yeah.
with his crew,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Gets trampled.
yeah, he gets trampled by the stampede, and then John stops the stampede.
Yeah. By
And-
doing some circular.
They get the cows to
Spinning.
run in a circle.
Yeah, some spinning movement.
And you had an interesting observation of these
Yeah.
cows while they were circling each other.
I thought I saw a couple of cows mount other cows.
You did see, we saw some cow
Yeah.
fucking. There's
Yeah.
a lot.
Absolutely. I was
Just
like-
in the middle of this big action stunt scene, which is something you only get with real cows.
Yeah, yeah. Entirely, yeah.
And now, so the big action scene just happened,
Mhm.
and I want to say, in 30 seconds, we see John kiss Ginger,
Yeah.
then Sonora Joe make a joke to Pat, and then the movie just ended
Yeah.
with a big the end. And it was just such a not satisfying ending
No.
because John had no hand in besting the villain. The villain got stampeded. He got fucking obliterated by these cows. You
Yeah.
really feel those cows running over him.
Mhm.
It's vicious. And then the movie ends.
Just ends.
That's the whole movie.
Yeah.
We didn't miss a single thing. So let's discuss. I want to talk about this movie
Mhm.
because I have some problems with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things just happen, right?
Yeah. Like when we didn't even talk about when John was captured.
There's no point in talking.
Yeah.
There's a minute of the movie where I didn't even notice. Bear in mind, I'm watching this movie so intently. I'm taking notes because it's my job. The purpose, the way we
Right.
divvy this out, Micah catches the interesting, funny bits of the movie.
Right.
I get the raw plot. I missed this because I looked away for a second. John got kidnapped.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that.
From what I recall, I think it's Crew's crew or Arizona's crew or whatever. They
Yeah.
like John was just chilling
Yeah.
by some building, and then they like lassoed him, and like 15 men huddled around him and start dragging him, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he was in a bar
But-
tied to a chair.
And then what's important is that not 25 seconds later,
Mm-hmm.
he's freed by
he's-
Sonora Joe.
Yeah, because Duke. That's right.
Duke goes-
Duke doesn't save him as in the prior movie.
Yeah, Duke just goes,
Duke
wakes
just-
up a guy.
Yeah, Duke does nothing.
I'm so disappointed by Duke's portrayal. But yeah, within 30 seconds, he goes from captured to free.
Yeah.
And nothing in the plot changes. And that's so much of this movie. The more I talk about this movie, the more angry I am about it. Because that trailer, I can't stress enough how excited for this movie I was. I feel so betrayed. The more I think about it, that trailer, it said whoopee.
Yeah,
They
really emphasize Duke in the trailer, and he's a non-factor.
They say with Duke his miracle horse.
His miracle horse.
And I see the miracle in the first movie.
Absolutely.
Ride Him Cowboy.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Dude, Duke, the star of the show, easily.
Yeah.
Here he's barely in the movie. And now I'm nervous about the rest of these.
Yeah.
I was really hopeful about the Duke hexology.
Right.
But now I'm like, maybe they spent all their good fortune on that first movie. I mean, this movie blows chunks.
It does. Yeah.
Nothing has any purpose. Things just happen. Like the stars. They don't.
Yeah.
Like, why him pretending to not be the sheriff goes nowhere.
Right.
The idea of taming New Mexico goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pat Malloy does nothing except be a little kid who has, like, a couple jokey lines. It's nothing. This movie's so hollow.
Yeah.
It's incomprehensible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I missing anything? Like, what do you think about this movie?
It's just confused. It's just confusing. There's so many more characters they have to keep track of.
There's like a million.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. It was hard to keep up with, honestly.
It was awful.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think, yeah, just, it was heartbreaking. Duke didn't get his flowers.
No.
Heartbreaking.
Mm.
It's racist.
Very.
It's extremely racist.
Just because of Sonora Joe.
Sonora Joe and the native guy.
Yeah.
The fake Native American guy.
There was no need for that.
They didn't need to put a guy in brown face in there, but they did. They did. It's extremely racist. They play fucking La Cucaracha the second you meet a Mexican character. And they're all wearing sombreros.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. The female characters, there's two. One of them is just called Brett's wife. And the second one, Ginger, literally does nothing except fall for John Wayne.
Yeah.
You know the Bechdel test? Like, do two women talk to each other in the movie? And do they talk about anything other than men?
Mm-hmm.
First off, at no point do two women ever speak. There's only two in the movie at all.
Yeah.
And one of them doesn't speak about anything. You don't know her personality.
No.
You don't know anything about her family. You just know her uncle.
And her brother.
And her brother. You don't know what her interests are. Nothing.
I mean, you know, one interest.
John
Steele.
John Steele. John Steele's the only
The
thing
super
she
hot
needs
deputy sheriff.
that she's gonna
New
marry
Mexico
because he
territory.
reads her palm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's into horoscope.
I guess.
What a trope. What a waste of a character.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is 32,
Mm-hmm.
and I should have really expected this specifically. But that last movie didn't have any of this. It had a little bit of sexism because Ruth is barely in it. But still, she had...
At least she did something.
She saved John.
Yeah.
She saved John Drury. Here. She is literally a damsel in distress who does nothing and just gets saved once and then immediately falls for the guy.
Yeah.
They speak twice. Yeah.
Man.
We've got to go to our innovative segment where we talk about John Wayne's Words of the West.
Words of the West, baby.
You lead us off.
So my words of the West, it's a singular word actually.
Yeah.
All the way back to when John Steele saved Patty Malloy when
Patty Malloy.
when he lassoed Arizona, and after that scene when John Steele he punched the shit out of Arizona, Crew went up to him and he was like, "You did a mighty fine job there, partner," or something like that.
Yeah, like good punch.
Yeah, good punch. Like nice right hook or something like that. John Wayne just turns around very slowly, very awkwardly, and so over dramatic, and just says, "Thanks."
That's it. He's going, thanks.
That's it. That's his word of. That's
John Wayne's word of the West.
Word of the West.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Mine, similar to yours, where I just liked his goofy delivery.
Right.
John Wayne's the only good part of this fucking movie, because he's very charming.
Yes.
Like actually, not like the ironic appreciation of a horribly racist character like Sonora Joe. John Wayne, I can kind of see he's got some charming moments in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is when he deputizes Sonora Joe when they round the corner and they see him playing the mouth organ. He's brewing coffee over an open flame, and he just looks at them and goes, "How about a cup of coffee?" Like with this stupid shit-eating grin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it really worked for me.
Yeah. Right.
I like that scene. But that's a Big Stampede.
Big Stampede. What a film.
Like a big steaming pile of garbage. I'm being harsh on this movie, but that's just because I feel like it was too fast, and I feel like I don't understand what they wanted me to take away from this movie.
Right.
It's so not satisfying.
Yeah.
Nothing that should happen happens.
What was the little description?
Yeah, the description says a deputy sheriff hunts down the cattle rustlers responsible for murdering his predecessor. That,
Yeah.
unless subtextually it means Crew murdered the last sheriff.
Yeah.
He's not hunting, though.
No.
John doesn't hunt anyone down. He shows up and there are the villains,
Mm-hmm.
and he immediately bests them at every turn. I think that's the problem. The villains do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They kill a guy I don't care about,
Yeah.
Brett, because he's barely introduced. I know he has a wife and a niece. That's it. Nothing.
That's all.
Oh. Don't watch this movie. This. Oh, I guess we gotta go to. Are we doing our new system? What is this rated on Rotten Tomatoes? If you can pull that up quick.
That's right. Oh.
This is a new segment we're gonna start here,
Mm-hmm.
where we're gonna look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores of this movie, and we are gonna decide if we agree with it or not.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, this is a 33%.
That's a fucking accurate score.
Yeah, that's fitting.
I think, 30% of this movie is enjoyable,
Yeah.
and I think 30% of people will look at that part and say that's good.
Yeah. It's one of those films where it's fun to laugh at, not laugh with.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, no, you're never laughing with the movie.
No.
You're never like engaged. The wagon scene, again, which you can see fully in the trailer. Just watch the trailer. It's better than the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You get all of the highlights of the movie. You miss nothing.
Yeah.
Watch the trailer.
Watch the trailer.
Don't watch the movie.
The trailer's 2 thumbs up.
The trailer? Yeah, let's go to our innovative ranking system. The trailer, 2 thumbs up for me too. The trailer for A Big Stampede, 4 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Loved it. Big fan. 2 minutes says more than 1,000 words. Love
Absolutely.
it. This movie, it's racist, it's sexist, it doesn't value my time. It's full of garbage plots that don't go anywhere. A Duke isn't used. That's a big 2 thumbs down from me.
2 thumbs down. I respect that. I'm not gonna be quite as harsh, because, I mean, it is a B-level Western. It's the
True.
1930s. I mean...
But look at what they did with Ride Him Cowboy.
I know.
That's a
Yeah.
B-level Western. Built with the same bones.
Yeah, that's...
And it doesn't have the racism. Way less sexism.
Absolutely.
Way better action. Great jokes.
I'm still gonna stick with 1 thumb down.
That's
I mean,
fair.
It's just too damn funny. Like, just
To
the
laugh at.
goofs, the gaffes, just... Like, it's
I'm
Sonora.
glad you're not as harsh.
Yeah,
This definitely is a 3 total thumbs down movie.
indeed.
I think that's accurate. So this is a 3 thumbs down. Watch the trailer. If you only watch this movie if you are doing this exact project where you're watching all of them. Otherwise,
Yeah,
don't bother with it.
yeah.
I do believe that's everything, right?
That is everything.
Okay.
Quick plug.
Quick
Make sure
plug.
follow the Instagram. No Pain, No Wayne Pod.
No
Twitter.
Pain, No Wayne Pod.
Twitter. No Pain, No Wayne 1. Email us at nopainnoWayne1@gmail.com. And that's about it.
Yeah, have a great time.
Oh yeah.
Glad you're watching the podcast. Well, listening.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear from any of our listeners who make it through this far. And just, we'll see you next time.
Oh,
Next week, Wednesday, when we watch Haunted Gold.
Oh, you've been waiting for this one.
I've been so excited for this movie. And if it turns out the same way this one did, I'll be heartbroken.
It's gonna be a long project.
Oh, it really feels like it's never ending at this
Absolutely.
point. The reality of having to watch 70 of these movies is really starting to set in.